All right, so if you're a developer, your social feed is probably completely melting down right now over this whole AI model battle.
Yeah.
GPT 5.1 versus Sonnet 4.5. But this isn't just, internet drama. The choice you make here, it really impacts your cloud bill, your uptime, and just how your whole dev workflow feels.
It absolutely does.
So we're not going to read you the marketing slogans today. We're treating these models like serious professional tools. Our whole goal here is to get right into the source material, the benchmarks, the pricing, the real world stuff, to help you figure out which one should be your default workhorse.
Right.
And, when you really need to pay up for the specialists.
And what's so fascinating is that the high-level picture, it's actually remarkably clear, even with all the complex data.
Yeah.
I mean, this matchup it's fundamentally about the generalist versus the specialist.
Right.
GPT 5.1 is that super capable generalist. It's designed to be everywhere. Your IDE, your CI bots, all those fast feedback loops. Sonnet 4.0 is totally different. It's the focused expert. It shines when a task is super long, really messy, and just unforgiving.
Okay, so let's just jump straight into the hard data then, because that's where the real debate is. We're looking at a benchmark snapshot, comparing them across 4 key developer tests.
Exactly. And we should probably clarify what those tests even measure, because they fall into 2 very different groups.
It's a point.
So on one side, you have your high-velocity, short-sequence tasks. First, there's IOI, that stands for Input-Output Inversion.
So like complex algorithms and math problems.
Precisely. Tricky data structures, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then you got LiveCodeBench, which is your bread and butter.
Writing functions, fixing tests.
The everyday stuff, exactly. And the GPT models, they tend to just own this space. But then you have the other 2, SWE-bench and terminal bench. And these are all about depth and endurance.
Okay.
SWE-bench is about real-world bug fixing, digging into a complex code base, editing multiple files. And terminal bench is the ultimate test. Can the model act like an agent? Can it navigate a terminal, read logs, and just keep a task going for a long time? This is where the specialist usually comes in.
Got it. Okay, so let's look at the scores, starting with the fast stuff. For IOI, the algorithmic test, GPT 5.1 is way ahead on accuracy, and it's drastically cheaper. And it's pretty much the same story for LiveCodeBench, our everyday coding test. GPT 5.1 is it's significantly more accurate, something like 86.5% versus Sonnet's 73%.
A huge gap.
But hold on, before we move on, the source material mentions that GPT 5.1 has 2 different versions, instant and thinking. Can you just quickly break that down? Why should a developer care which one is in their IDE?
Oh, that's a critical point for your actual workflow. The difference is basically speed versus depth. Instant is the fast conversational one. It's perfect for like boilerplate code or explaining a simple concept or just, rubber ducking an idea. You get fast feedback. Thinking is slower, it's more expensive, but it's accessing much deeper reasoning. You use that when you need, say, a complex architectural review or some really tricky logic figured out.
And the benchmarks we're looking at are for the thinking model mostly?
Generally, yes. They're testing for that peak performance.
Okay, that makes sense. So GPT 5.1 is the clear champ for day-to-day coding. But as we move towards those messier, long-running tasks, the picture starts to change.
Absolutely. The plot thickens, as they say when we look at SWE-bench.
Yeah.
The bug fixing test. Sonnet 4.5 actually edges ahead here on raw accuracy. It solves slightly more of those real-world bug tickets. But, and this is huge, but that win comes at a terrifying cost.
Oh, wait, okay, I'm looking at the table now. Sonnet 4.5 is not just slower, it is, wow. It is astronomically more expensive per solved problem. The cost difference is something like 20 times higher than GPT 5.1. How? How could you possibly justify that?
And that's the exact moment where we have to stop looking at the API bill and start talking about the cost per solved problem. Yes, the token price is way higher, but think about it. What if a mistake in your system means production downtime or data loss, or you lose a massive enterprise customer?
Right. Suddenly the cost of human intervention or the cost of the failure itself is way bigger than the API call.
Exactly. And we see that pattern get even stronger in Terminal Bench, the agent test. There, Sonnet 4.5 pulls way ahead in accuracy, 61.3%, versus GPT 5.1's 47.5%. And it's actually faster here, which really confirms its role as the go-to for these long-running autonomous tasks.
So it really feels like we have 2 totally different cost models running at the same time.
That's a great way to put it.
If failure is cheap, if the worst thing that happens is the test fails and you just run it again, GPT 5.1 wins. Easy. But if failure is super expensive, like a security breach or a production outage, that extra reliability from Sonnet 4.5, even at 20 times the price, it suddenly starts to look really cheap.
Becomes an insurance policy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this analysis gives us two very specific job descriptions. Let's start with GPT 5.1. When is it your workhorse?
GPT 5.1 is your reliable mid-level engineer. It's your default when you're living in your IDE, when you care about a predictable token budget, and when latency really matters. It just crushes the bulk of your coding. So tasks, writing functions, docs, all that fast feedback stuff we saw in LiveCodeBench.
Yeah.
And you probably just live in the instant version for most of that.
Okay. And when do you call in the specialist? When do you reach for Sonnet 4.5?
You reach for Sonnet when your problem stops looking like write this function
Yeah.
and starts looking like keep this agent alive for 3 days while it fixes a giant bug across 10 files.
The scary work.
The scary work, exactly. Multi-file refactors, messy data migrations, security-sensitive changes, incident response, anything that fits that terminal bench profile of planning and resilience.
And we should touch on the safety angle, too. Anthropic makes a really big deal about Sonnet 4.5 being safer.
Absolutely. For anyone building complex autonomous agents, that is not a footnote. It's a core feature. Sonnet 4.5 just ships with stronger guards against things like prompt injection, and it's designed to handle the rough edges of autonomy. When you're letting an agent touch production systems, that built-in safety work is a huge part of the value. It helps justify that premium.
So once you kind of get past this idea of being loyal to one model, it stops looking like a rivalry. It starts to look more like a really effective tag team.
That's the secret workflow that power users are figuring out.
Which is?
The pattern is you use Sonnet 4.5 to design,
Yeah.
and then you use GPT 5.1 to deliver. You play to their strengths in sequence, which helps with the cost but gets you the best of both worlds.
Okay, so walk me through that. Step by step, what does that look like?
Okay, so step one is the planning pass. You give Sonnet 4.5 the big, messy goal, something like migrate this entire API to a new service.
Sure.
Sonnet is great at that high-level reasoning, so you have it outline a multi-phase plan, define all the acceptance criteria, and list exactly which files are going to change.
So you get a clean, structured plan.
Right. Then, step two, the implementation pass. You take that clean plan and you feed it, one phase at a time, into the cheaper, faster GPT 5.1 model to actually write the code.
And then you audit it.
And then the final step is the audit pass. You cross-check them. You can feed GPT 5.1's code back to Sonnet 4.5 and ask it to find failure modes or security risks. It's incredibly effective.
And we have to talk about the vibe check for a second, because performance isn't everything. The flow, when you're in your IDE for 8 hours, it really matters.
It absolutely does. And they feel very different. GPT 5.1 Instant is warmer, more conversational. It's great for just bouncing ideas around. My team jokes that Sonnet 4.5 feels more like that. You know, that blunt senior engineer on your team.
Ah, I know that engineer.
Right. It's more no-nonsense. It's not going to validate your ideas as much. It'll push back immediately if your plan seems shaky because it's prioritizing risk analysis over just being agreeable.
So Sonnet for architecture, GPT 5.1 for iteration.
That's how most of the savvy teams are using them.
Okay, so to put all this into a bigger context, let's look at the broader market. The LiveCodeBench leaderboard from November 2025. This should show us where they sit against all the other competitors.
Yeah, and looking at that leaderboard, what jumps out immediately is just how dominant the GPT family is for general coding. GPT 5.1 is sitting way up high at number 2 with that 86.5% accuracy. It's actually beaten just barely by the smaller, faster, and incredibly cheap GPT-5 Mini.
Interesting. And the crucial question, where is Sonnet 4.5 on that general coding leaderboard?
Well, that's the kicker. It's not in the top 10.
Not even there.
Its general coding accuracy for these short tasks is much lower, down around 73%. And this just reinforces the entire point we've been making. GPT 5.1 is the generalist leader. It's built for raw speed and accuracy on the common everyday tasks. Sonnet 4.5 is a specialist model, fine-tuned for that deep, long-sequence reasoning you need for SWE-bench and terminal bench.
So the final takeaway here seems really clear. This isn't about picking a winner. It's about deciding where each tool belongs in your workflow. Use GPT 5.1 as your reliable, cost-effective default in your IDE, in your CI, wherever speed and predictable cost matter the most. But you keep Sonnet 4.5 on the bench for the scary work, those risky migrations, production incidents, security audits, and any high-stakes agentic system.
Right. And the sources really encourage people to treat these systems like a real toolkit. Don't just pick one and stick with it. The best advice is to take a real project, instrument it, and actually run a GPT 5.1 pass, a Sonnet 4.5 pass, and then a hybrid pass. Measure the results against your own tickets and your own costs.
And here's the thought I want to leave you with. Instead of worrying about which model is abstractly smarter, maybe you should stop tracking API tokens. Start tracking your cost per solved ticket across these different workflows. You might just find that the extra money you spend on a reliable specialist like Sonnet 4.5, even with its high sticker price, is actually your biggest cost saver in the long run, because it reduces the one thing that's truly expensive: human intervention when things go wrong.